everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is June 21st, 2026, and today I'm going to talk about how Benjamin Sesko has been offered to Barcelona, a player that a lot of you consistently mention in the comment section about Barcelona signing him for that center forward position. Also, we're going to talk about not one, but two players currently in the World Cup impressing Barcelona's scouts. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. My name is Boo, and I hope all of you are enjoying this 2026 World Cup. I sure am. We had some pretty amazing matches today. Cape Verde, ladies and gentlemen, Cape Verde. I talked about this, I think it was last week. I talked about how I had underestimated Cape Verde, the way they held off Spain 0-0 with an amazing coordinated defensive work. And well, today they did it again. Today they held off Uruguay, drawing 2-2 with the first goal by Cape Verde, which was one hell of a banger. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor, go to YouTube, look it up. Cape Verde 2, Uruguay 2, that first goal by Cape Verde from a free kick, an absolute missile from a third away out of the goal, and then a one hell of a goal, 2-2, another draw for Cape Verde. What an World Cup they're having. What an effort they're having. By the way, crazy group they're in. Everybody's drawing in that group. But nonetheless, I'm becoming a fan, man. I am becoming a fan of Cape Verde. And to think, before the World Cup, I didn't even know where Cape Verde was. Like, I literally had to Google it. I knew it was an African nation, but I didn't know where in Africa it was. I had to Google where it was. And now I'm becoming a fan. I'm about to go buy their kit because what a World Cup they're having. Amazing, amazing work. But anyways, enough about Cape Verde. Let's talk about, of course, Barcelona. I mean Spain, because ladies and gentlemen, today's Spain cruised to an easy victory against Saudi Arabia, 4-0, with a goal by Lamine Yamal, the 18-year-old Barcelona starlet, scoring officially his first World Cup goal. Great goal, by the way. And then, of course, two goals by Oyarzabal. I think he is the first player in the history of the World Cup to score two goals, provide an assist within 24 minutes, because Lamine Yamal's goal was assisted by Oyarzabal. And then in the second half, Spain getting there was an own goal, which was as a result from a kick by Cucurella that was blocked by the Saudi goalkeeper, but then it bounces off a Saudi defender. And then, of course, Ferran doing Ferran things. First, missing a clear chance. He gets an incredible pass, 1v1 against the goalkeeper, misses it. Second one he gets, he scores it, but it's an offside. So even when Ferran scores, he still misses. So Ferran, ladies and gentlemen, just doing Ferran things even at the World Cup. But of course, I'm not here to talk about Ferran. I'm here to talk about Lamine Yamal scoring his first goal. Congratulations to the 18-year-old, who I'm sure is going to rack up many, 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 many goals, World Cup goals in his career. I mean, this is his first World Cup, and he's only 18. I'm sure he's going to play another 4, maybe 5 other World Cups, and he'll have plenty of chances to continue adding to his tally. And by the way, Spain finally responding to that draw against Cape Verde. Of course, I talked about that last week. First I praised Cape Verde, but aside from what the great things that Cape Verde did, I think Spain, tactically speaking, were very, very deficient. I talked about how Luis de la Fuente used Pedri and Fabian Ruiz together. And I said, those two players, individually excellent players, but together they don't play that well. And well, lo and behold, today, Fabian Ruiz did not play with Pedri, and voila, Spain's midfield worked much, much better. And then, of course, we had Gabi against Cape Verde as a left winger when you needed someone to unlock their defense. Today, Gabi was not there. Also made a difference. And then, of course, the Lamine Yamal factor, I think that was a big one. Of course, this one I don't blame on Luis de la Fuente. Lamine Yamal could not have started against Cape Verde. But today he did start against Saudi Arabia, and what a difference it makes to have Lamine Yamal on the field, not only because of what he contributes when he has the ball in his feet. Not only can he score and provide assists and send crosses and dribble past defenders, but what he does for his teammates, because automatically by Lamine Yamal being on the field, he's not doing anything. Just by being there, automatically opposing teams have to send 2-3 defenders. Every time Lamine Yamal had the ball, there was at least 3 defenders on him. And that, of course, opens up a lot of space in other areas of the field, because it's an 11 versus 11 sport. That means one player can mark only one player. When you take 3 players to mark one, well, that leaves 2 players from the opposing team that are completely free, right? So that opens up space through the middle. That opens up space through the left. In fact, we saw how much space it opened up on the left by having Lamine on the right. We saw how Alex Baena dropped towards the middle, and then that left the whole left flank for Marco Correa to do whatever the hell he wanted. In fact, that's how the first goal came about. Oyarzabal sending across from the left to Lamine Yamal, who scored, because that's the Lamine Yamal factor, ladies and gentlemen. Even if he's not doing anything, he's still making a big difference, because opposing teams have to send 3 people to mark him, which leaves other players open on the field. So great victory by Spain, 4-0 against Saudi Arabia. I think with that victory, they're on the top of the group, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they are at the top of the group. I think they have 4 points. Cape Verde and Uruguay have 2 each. And then Saudi has 0, right? Saudi has 1. I can't remember. I don't care. Spain at the top of the group. Lamine Yamal has a goal. And anyways, enough about the World Cup. Actually, it's not enough about the World Cup. We still have to talk about the World Cup. But this is more Barcelona related, because, ladies and gentlemen, Brazil has confirmed that Raphinha has suffered an injury to his right hamstring. Of course, Raphinha was subbed out in their victory against Haiti. And we weren't too sure if it was an injury, if it was precautionary. You know, we saw Raphinha kind of like crouch, and he was kind of like touching his leg, and then he got up and he left. So we're like, maybe it's precautionary, maybe it's injury. Well, he did undergo medical testing. He underwent some scans in a medical center in New Jersey. And Brazil's team has confirmed that Raphinha has suffered an injury. They have not ruled him out of the competition. We don't know how long he's going to be out. We do know he's for sure going to miss the final group stage match of Brazil, which is against Scotland. We don't know when he will be back after that, if he's going to be back for the round of 32, round of 16. We don't know, but we do know that he will miss the match against Scotland for sure in the group stages. Now, this is, of course, the same injury that Raphinha suffered from last time he was with Brazil, which saw him miss the semifinals of the Copa del Rey and the quarterfinals of the Champions League. You know, this past season, Raphinha has suffered a lot of injuries, which saw him sidelined for 4 months. You know, the season prior to that, he featured 57 times for Barcelona. This past season, only 33 times. So we're talking about 24 matches less due to injuries. Let's hope that Raphinha can recover. Let's hope he can continue playing the World Cup, because, you know, every player dreams of this moment, and Raphinha deserves to be on that Brazilian squad. He deserves to be playing the World Cup. And let's hope that this upcoming season with Barcelona could be a season free of injuries. Anyways, on to the next bit of news, and this is a big one. I know probably a lot of you clicked on this video because you wanted to hear about this news. But ladies and gentlemen, media sources in England confirming that Benjamin Sesko has been offered to Barcelona through intermediaries. Now, I know a lot of you are always talking about, Mo, what about Sesko? What about Sesko? Well, here we go. Sesko being offered to Barcelona. For those of you who don't know who Benjamin Sesko is, if you know, I'm pretty sure most of you do. 23 years old, Slovenian center forward, currently playing for Manchester United. He has a contract until 2030 with Manchester United. He signed for the Red Devils last summer. And while he had a pretty good first season for Man U, in fact, he finished the season as their top scorer with 11 goals. Someone that can only score, he can also dribble, has a great shot, can combine with his teammates. You know, a pretty interesting profile for a center forward who has now been offered to Barcelona. Now, I got to make this distinction very clear, because sometimes it gets lost on people, or people misinterpret what I say. I'm not saying that Barcelona are actively looking to sign him, or they're trying to sign him or anything like that. We're saying that the player has been offered to Barca. Whether Barcelona are interested or not, that's of course a completely different story. We'll see what Barcelona's reaction is to this offering, but just know that Sesko's um, agents or people close to him have offered his services to Barcelona. Of course, Barcelona's main objective remains Julian Alvarez. That's the number one objective. If that objective is not met, there's a list of other center forwards that Barcelona are considering. We'll see whether Barcelona add Sesko's name to that list. But regardless, the number one target remains Julian Alvarez. Now, let's move on to more news because there are currently two players impressing Barcelona scouts at the World Cup. As you know, Barcelona has scouts at the World Cup just like any other major European club in order to monitor, breakthrough talents and see who would be an interesting signing, whether this summer or in the future. And there are two names that are at the top of the list of Barcelona scouts who have been watching these matches closely. The first one is the Ivory Coast midfielder Chris Inau Ulay. I hope I said that correctly. I'm 99.9% sure I said that incorrectly. But if any of you know how to say it correctly, please let me know in the comment section. But Ulay, he's 20 years old. Again, midfielder for Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire. Someone who came up through the JMG Academy in Ivory Coast, then signed for Bastia, and then soon after signed for the Turkish club Trabzonspor for 5.5 million euros. He's a midfielder who plays with lots of intensity, physical edge, and aggressive pressing. And well, lo and behold, that's exactly what Hansi Flick looks for in his players. And as such, he has caught the attention of Barcelona's scouts. Now, what's the problem? The problem is that they're saying in Turkey that Trabzonspor would want around 50 million euros for him, 50. And of course, Barcelona are not going to spend 50 million euros on a 20-year-old, let alone midfielder, given that, well, Barcelona has many midfielders. But of course, if the price is lowered, then Barcelona could consider this signing they could consider it more for this summer. And if not, this I'm sure will remain a name that Barcelona will continue to watch. What a game, by the way, by Ivory Coast against Germany. An incredible first half. Frank Kessié scoring that goal. But then Germany improving dramatically in the second half and coming back to win it 2-1. But anyways, the second name that has caught the attention of Barcelona scouts is Crescencio Somerville, the 24-year-old left winger, Dutch left winger who currently plays for West Ham in the Premier League, has a contract with West Ham until 2029. Someone that Barcelona are valuing very highly, in fact, above Ulay. So kind of like Somerville number one, Ulay number two. But these are the two names that have caught Barcelona's scouts' attention. Of course, like I said, in the case of Ulay, 50 million euros, that's not something that Barcelona are going to be looking to spend. And as far as Somerville, I imagine this will be more like a name for the future, especially since now Barcelona have signed Anthony Gordon. Or unless, of course, if Raphinha leaves, then maybe this could be a name that Barcelona would consider to come and compete with Anthony Gordon for that left wing position. But for now, of course, left wing not a priority. But nonetheless, Barcelona taking note of this name, Crescencio Somerville, the Dutch left winger. Anyways, that is all the news. Let me know, what do you guys think? Would you sign any of these two, Ulay or Somerville? Also, what do you think about Sesko to Barcelona? Is that someone you would want to see at the team? And then finally, let me know if you have any other thoughts about the World Cup, any matches you like, any goals you've seen that you enjoyed. Let me know down below in the comment section. I will be going home. I'm flying Tuesday afternoon. I'm flying back home. I land there Wednesday morning. So Wednesday, back in my YouTube studio. And of course, podcast, which I know I haven't done one since I came to Argentina. So I hope to see all of you there. Anyways, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. And as always, be Scarsa.